This Gynae Wizard Placenta series, and today we will be discussing on our episode number 2, that is endocrinology of placenta. So, placenta is a key component and it's a key endocrine organ which is required for the pregnancy, and all the feto-maternal signals are through the placenta. And we all well know that the placenta is not innervated, but still it has some power to emit signals. So, how is it possible? It is mainly through the hormones which are secreted from the placenta, and these hormones have both autocrine and paracrine activity, and hence the maintenance of different functions occurs both with respect to the mother as well as the fetus. So that's why it's very important for us to know about this endocrinology of placenta. And various interactions are because of these hormonal signals. And we have to remember, when it comes to the hormones which are secreted from the placenta, we have two types of hormones. So, what are they? One are the steroid hormones, and the second one are the peptide hormones based on the structure. So, these steroid hormones, main steroid hormones which are secreted from the placenta, are the progesterone, which is very important for the maintenance of the pregnancy. Secondly, the estrogen, which is also equally important, and the glucocorticoids. So these three are very important steroid hormones which are secreted from the placenta. And these steroid hormones usually have their receptors which are located on the nucleus inside the cell, or they are usually intracellular receptors. So whenever these hormones are released, they are endocytosed, and from that they go and act on the nuclear and the intracellular cytoplasmic receptors, and then the transcription takes place. So this is very important, and these are the three steroid hormones which are secreted or released from the placenta. And next, coming to the peptide hormones. So in peptide hormones, HCG is a very important hormone. So we all know human chorionic gonadotropin is very much important, and it is mainly secreted from the syncytial trophoblast. So usually all these hormones are usually secreted from the syncytial trophoblast. So these syncytial trophoblast secretes these hormones, and they have their effect both on the mother and the fetus. And next, this along with the HCG, other hormones which are secreted are human placental lactogen and the human placental growth hormone. And along with this, there are other hormones like corticotropic releasing hormone, gonadotropic releasing hormone, leptin, ghrelin, etc. So these are all also very important in the function of the placenta. So there are three steroid hormones and around 6 to 7 peptide hormones which are important, and we will discuss today. So what is the main agenda of today's class is to understand the importance of each hormone which is secreted from the placenta, and what is its role during pregnancy, and what is its role in some complications which occur during pregnancy. So this is today's agenda, and we will not go into very much molecular details, but at least we have to remember and understand the importance of each hormone with respect to obstetrics. So the clinical importance is more important. So that is what we are more interested about, and we will discuss it today's class. So this is a table which shows the importance of each hormone, the source which is produced in the placenta, where are the receptors located, and what are the main functions during pregnancy. So today we will discuss about each hormone. So firstly, it is progesterone. So what are the importance of progesterone? We all know that the progesterone is the main hormone, and it is a central pregnancy maintaining hormone, and it is necessary both for the relaxation of the myometrium. It is also necessary for the formation of immunomodulation. So immunomodulation is a key factor which prevents the fetus as a which prevents the graft rejection of the fetus. So this helps in the implantation of the fetus in the maternal endometrium. So this is very important, and that's why progesterone is a key hormone during pregnancy. And firstly, this progesterone is secreted from the corpus luteum. So we all know there is, once the fertilization occurs, this corpus luteum becomes active, and it is also called as corpus luteum gestationalis, and this will start producing progesterone. And this progesterone, it helps in the maintenance of the pregnancy. It helps in the nidation and implantation of the embryo. And this embryo also, the syncytiotrophoblasts cells also start producing the progesterone. And once the placenta is completely established by around 8 weeks, this luteoplacental shift occurs. So what is luteoplacental shift? Up to around 8 weeks of gestation, the progesterone is mainly produced by the corpus luteum. So what it is like that progesterone is mainly produced by the corpus luteum, and also once it is produced, it has a positive reinforcement, and it produces more and more progesterone. So this corpus luteum itself acts like a this progesterone itself acts like a stimulating factor for the corpus luteum, and corpus luteum in turn again produces progesterone. So it is like a circle. And next is the luteoplacental shift occurs by 8th week, and once the placenta is completely formed, then the syncytiotrophoblasts cells will produce the progesterone till the end of pregnancy. And why is it important that this progesterone mainly maintains the uterus in a quiescent state? So that is why this prevents the early labor or preterm labor. So that is why whenever there is cervical insufficiency, or whenever there is a short cervix, we give vaginal progesterone. So this is mainly to maintain the pregnancy, and it also has some of the anti-inflammatory actions as well. So firstly, it helps in decidualization, which the progesterone which is secreted from the corpus luteum, and then there is embryo implantation, and also it has a tranquilizing or a quiescence state of the uterus is mainly because of the progesterone. And also it has many immunotolerance, which is mainly by decreasing the uterine NK cell activity. It also decreases the trophoblastic invasion, and hence it prevents the placenta accreta syndrome. It helps in the trophoblast migration, and also which helps in trophoblast migration, and which results in a high capacitance and low resistance circulation. And also it decreases the placental synthesis of HCG and leptin. It's like a regulator for leptin. So it decreases the leptin, maintains it in a normal range. So that's how it is important. So usually this progesterone acts on the nuclear receptors, and mainly it acts on the progesterone alpha and progesterone beta receptors. So these receptors are very much important, and these are usually located in the nucleus of the cell. And thus the progesterone has a role in immunomodulation as well. So what do you mean by immunomodulation? It increases the Th2 cells in preference to the Th1 cells. So there is shift between the Th2 to Th1. So this Th2 is very much important to decrease the cytotoxic activity and to cause immunotolerance, and this helps in the implantation of the embryo. So this is a very important and a key role of progesterone in the early pregnancy, and throughout pregnancy also it acts as a hormone which maintains the pregnancy. And also progesterone will inhibit the myometrial contractility by decreasing the contraction associated proteins. So what are these contraction associated proteins? Mainly the oxytocin receptor, the prostaglandin receptor, and also the connexin 43, that is, which is the component of the gap junctions. So this also decreases. So these contraction associated proteins are kept under check by progesterone. So whenever these reduce, the uterus maintains its quiescent state. So during the late pregnancy or late term, whenever she's due for delivery, the level of progesterone in the maternal circulation decreases and estrogen increases. So this is a signal where that it is time for labor. So whenever the concentration of the progesterone decreases, that time there is activation of the corticotropic releasing hormone. So that is why this establishes the labor when it comes to uh, labor or induction during delivery. So that is why progesterone is important during pregnancy. Next, coming to estrogens. So these estrogens during the initial part of the pregnancy are produced by the corpus luteum, but after the placenta is well formed and established, the placenta and especially the syncytial trophoblast will produce estrogen. So this estrogens is also required during the pregnancy. And we all know there are four types of estrogen. So firstly, that is estrone, that is E1, estradiol, which is the most potent form, that is E2, estriol, which is E3, and last one is estrol, that is E4. And very important in the synthesis of the estrogens, the precursor molecules are not present in the placenta. So that is why it requires the precursor molecules, that is the DHEAS for synthesis of estradiol and 16-hydroxy DHEAS in the synthesis of estriol. So E2 and E3 are very much important clinically. So this DHEAS is utilized both by the maternal component and predominantly from the fetal adrenal cortex also, and further it is aromatized into estrogens in the placenta. So how this aromatization happens? So this aromatization happens with a very important enzyme which is present in the placenta, that is CYP450 aromatase. So this aromatase is a key enzyme which converts the DHEAS into estradiol and 16-hydroxy DHEAS into estriol. So this 16-hydroxy DHEAS is derived also from the fetal stress. So whenever fetus is under stress like FGR or any other conditions, this 16-hydroxy DHEAS will be released, and this will be converted into estriol, which is also indicated. So that is why whenever there is increase in estriol, it also indirectly tells that there is some fetal compromise. So this is very important, and this is a clinical take-home point which you all have to remember. And what is the other importance, or what are the other functions of the estrogen? They maintain the endometrial receptivity and embryo implantation, and also it has angiogenetic activity, and it regulates the uteroplacental perfusion. It increases the myometrial contractility, especially during the last phase of pregnancy, that is during term. The progesterone decreases, estrogen increases, and hence it helps in the establishment of contraction associated proteins, and also it helps in the growth of the breast, that is the mammary glands, and it prepares for the lactation, and also it increases the placental leptin synthesis, and which helps in the hyperlipidemic state, and also the glucose fat storage in the mother. So this is also a key role of estrogens which is present. And what are the receptors of estradiol? So they act both on estrogen receptor alpha and beta, and these are also like progesterone receptors. These are also the nuclear receptors mainly. So these are also the nuclear receptors mainly. And then after dimerizing, once the estrogen goes and acts on the receptors, the dimerization occurs, and then the gene expression occurs, and different functions have been performed. So this is the importance of estrogen which is secreted from the placenta. So one thing we have to remember, that in this table all hormones which are secreted from the placenta along with its source, receptor and function are given. So if you know this table, that is more than enough for a clinician or an obstetrician. So the next important hormones is glucocorticoids. So these glucocorticoids are not de novo synthesized by the placenta. So usually they are converted from the maternal cortisol to different steroids in the placenta. So today on my channel, I asked a very important question. So why does the fetus not respond to the maternal cortisol, but instead it responds to the synthetic antenatal corticosteroids like betamethasone or dexamethasone, which are given for lung maturation? So we all know any preterm labor case or PPROM, we give a course of antenatal corticosteroids which help lung maturation. So this is very much important for us to understand that placenta as an important enzyme. So what is this placental enzyme which is very much important is the 11 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase. So this is a very important enzyme which is mainly synthesized by the syncytial trophoblast. So it is synthesized by the syncytial trophoblast and it has two variants. So 11 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase 1 and 11 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase 2. So this 1 causes reduction and 2 causes oxidation. So usually during pregnancy, the maternal cortisol is converted into inactive cortisone. So this maternal cortisol is converted into inactive cortisone by this 11 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase 1. So that is why it does not respond to the maternal cortisol. But during delivery or during the late term, whenever the mother goes into labor or in the last phase of pregnancy, when when she establishes labor, so that time what will happen? There is 11 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase 2 which increases. So this 11 beta hydroxy steroid 2 increases, and that time the due to fetal stress or maternal stress, because there is increase in this hormone, that maternal cortisol will enter into the fetal circulation, and this causes the maturation of the fetus, and also the lung maturation occurs, and also the CRH will be preferentially secreted, and this helps in the onset of labor. So during term only this enzyme gets reversed, and this will increase in preference to 1. And one more we have to remember is the synthetic antenatal corticosteroids will not be metabolized by this enzyme. So that's why the fetus will be able to respond to the synthetic antenatal corticosteroids, because it will not be metabolized by this enzyme, but instead the maternal corticosteroid or the maternal cortisol will be converted into inactive cortisone by this enzyme, and that is why the maternal cortisol levels will not affect the fetus. So this is the reason why synthetic glucocorticoids are given for lung maturation. So this single picture shows us the steroid synthesis in the fetoplacental maternal unit. So as a postgraduate or a clinician in obstetrics, this image is very much important, and we have to know that the placenta derives its sources from either the mother or the fetus, and it has some of the key enzymes. So the pregnenolone is converted into progesterone by 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and this pregnenolone is again transported to the fetal circulation, and in the adrenal gland there is conversion into the DHEAS, and again DHEAS enters the placenta, and the androstenedione is released, and this androstenedione is converted into estrone by aromatase enzyme, and this is converted into 17 beta estradiol by 17 hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and finally the 16 alpha hydroxy DHEAS is also derived from the fetal circulation into the placenta, and it is converted into estriol by an enzyme called as aromatase. So these aromatase, 3 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase, 17 beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase are very important key enzymes which are helping in the regulation and formation of these hormones inside the placenta. So in brief, this is the steroid synthesis in the fetoplacental circulation. So next coming to the peptide hormone. So we know that is HCG, which is synthesized from the syncytial trophoblast, is very important in the maintenance of pregnancy. So what this HCG, and HCG has two units. So firstly, it is derived from the syncytial trophoblast and it is expressed from the chromosome 17. And then you have to also remember that the HCG has two subunits. So one is the alpha subunit and the two is the beta subunit. And alpha subunit, the structural similarity exists between the alpha subunit of HCG with alpha subunit of the FSH, LH, CRH and TSH. But the beta subunit is very specific for the uh, pregnancy and it is very specific for HCG. So that is why beta HCG is one of the very important hormone which helps in the diagnosis of the pregnancy. So the beta HCG starts rising almost as early as 8th week of as early as 8th day after conception. That is 8th day post fertilization, the beta HCG rises in the maternal serum. So what does this help to do is it goes and stimulates the corpus luteum, that is corpus luteum gravidatis, to produce the progesterone. So there is increased progesterone production from the corpus luteum and the main action is through the HCG hormone. And the second important thing is it has the activation of the local dendrite cells, uterine NK cells, regulatory regulatory cells, and it also inhibits the cytotoxic T cells and some cytokines. So these functions will help in the immunotolerance. So that is why this HCG is very important for immunomodulation, immunotolerance at the feto-maternal interface. And the second important thing what the HCG does is it helps in the function of decidual angiogenesis. So there is increased angiogenesis at the level of the deciduum and this helps in the formation of syncytiotrophoblasts from the cytotrophoblast. So these cytotrophoblastic cells will get fused and they form syncytiotrophoblasts and microvilli formation also occurs at the level of syncytiotrophoblast. So that is how it also forms the trophoblast from the cytotrophoblast will form the syncytiotrophoblast and the endovascular trophoblast invasion also occurs and that is also regulated by the HCG hormone and this also maintains the uterine quiescence and it also has some role in implantation of the embryo, especially because of the immunomodulation it helps in the implantation of the embryo. So this is very important. It is also a key hormone for pregnancy. And we also have to know something called as doubling time and discriminatory zone, which I will be discussing in my further classes or further videos. So these two are very important with respect to HCG hormone. Next, coming to the human placental lactogen. So this HPL is also very much important and this is also secreted by the syncytiotrophoblasts and the extravillous trophoblast and this HPL acts on the growth hormone receptors or the prolactin receptors. The structural similarity of HPL with prolactin helps it to act on the prolactin receptors. The main function of HPL is to cause lipolysis. So it causes lipolysis. It increases the free fatty acids and ketones. So that is why this HPL increases between 24 to 28 weeks of gestation and because of increased lipolysis and increase in release of free fatty acids, there is insulin resistance a precursor for the development of gestational diabetes mellitus. So that is why we have to recheck or we have to do a DIPSI again after booking visit at 24 to 28 weeks of gestation to see if she has developed any gestational diabetes mellitus. And this fetal insulin and hyperinsulinemia occurs and this releases insulin related growth factor which helps in the fetal growth, and this suppresses the placental leptin synthesis. So these are the different actions of human placenta lactogen. So why increase free fatty acids? Because this mother requires some fuel. So usually the methyl glucose is preferentially shunted to the fetus because the fetus is continuously dependent on the mother for its glucose. So how does the mother get source or its own fuel for energy metabolism? It is mainly by lipids. So this carbohydrate metabolism which occurs during pregnancy facilitates the continuous continuous shift of glucose from the mother to the baby so that the fetus is not deprived from its glucose, and it helps fetus growth and development. So that is why this lipolysis, which is facilitated by HPL, is very much important for the fetal growth and nourishment. So even human placental growth hormone also is secreted from the syncytial trophoblast, acts on the growth hormone receptors, and it also has a similar functions like HPL, like it increases the IGF-1, lipolysis, insulin resistance, and trophoblast invasion. Next important hormone which is secreted from the placenta or synthesized from the placenta is the leptin. So this leptin is very much important, and it is also a key hormone which is secreted from the syncytial cytotrophoblast. So what does it cause? It causes cytotrophoblastic proliferation, it causes the trophoblastic invasion, and it also helps in increase in the human chorionic gonadotropin secretion, and it also causes angiogenesis, implantation, immunomodulation, and it also increases the pro-inflammatory cytokines and prostaglandins during late pregnancy for the initiation of labor. So almost all these functions are similar to the other hormones, but one important function it has is causes satiety. So that's why the mother always has that hyperphagia. So she always feels hungry because the satiety center is not satisfied. So that is why whenever the satiety center is not satisfied, the mother wants to feed more. So there is hyperphagia and there is increased weight gain, and sometimes it also results in hyperinsulinemia as well. So this results in increase in lipolysis and increase in free fatty acids for the maternal availability of uh, maternal fuel for catabolism, but the glucose is preferentially shunted to the fetus. So this also facilitates fetal growth and it also helps in immunomodulate effects. And next, coming to the corticotropic releasing hormone. So corticotropic releasing hormone mainly is synthesized from the hypothalamus. So both the mother and the fetus, whenever there is maternal stress or fetal stress, there is increase in CRH. But even during pregnancy, the placenta also synthesizes CRH. So this CRH is preferentially synthesized in the late period of the pregnancy, the late pregnancy, or during the initiation of labor. So this is very much important, and this forms the key component of initiation of the parturition cascade. So parturition cascade will be initiated by the CRH, and it helps in increase in the matrix metalloproteinases, and also it has other functions, and it also increases the estrogen synthesis. So whenever there is increase estrogen, there is increase in estrogen, decrease in progesterone, and this helps in the initiation of labor. So just as a revision, this slide is just to show the functions of the leptin. So this leptin is derived from the mother, the baby, and the placenta, and it has the mobilization of energy reserves. That is, it increases the free fatty acids in the mother, and it also helps in the growth of the placenta, proliferation of the cytotrophoblast and syncytiotrophoblasts, angiogenesis, and immunomodulation. And with respect to the fetus, it causes fetal growth due to continuous supply of glucose, angiogenesis, hematopoiesis also is regulated by leptin, brain development, and also it helps in immunity. So this is a very important picture again. So we have to remember, so this is the cascade, that is the parturition cascade or the endocrine regulation of labor. So whenever there is maternal or fetal stress, so whenever there is fetal stress, there is release of the CRH from the hypothalamus, and it acts on the adrenal gland, which releases cortisol and the DHEAS. So this DHEAS is going into the placenta, and even whenever there is maternal stress, so whenever there are maternal complications like preeclampsia, or whenever there is eclampsia or over diabetes, or whenever there is any maternal related stress, this also increases the cortisol increases, and also the hypothalamus releases CRH. And when it releases CRH, this CRH will cause the increase in DHEAS, and this DHEAS will enter the placenta, and it is metabolized into estrogen. And also the cortisol, which will be converted into cortisol, will be blocked, and this cortisol will act and it causes a positive feedback mechanism, and cholesterol will be converted into pregnenolone. Pregnenolone will be converted into dihydroepiandrosterone, and this will be converted into estradiol. And whenever there is increase in estrogen, the CAPs get activated. So what are the CAPs? That's the oxytocin receptors, the prostaglandin receptors, and the gap junctions will increase. So whenever there is increase in these CAPs, there is myometrial contractility, and there is also the cervical changes, and the membranes will get separated, and this might start labor, or it might help in the initiation of labor. So that's why we always tell, whenever there is fetal stress in the form of fetal growth restriction or maternal stress, or if there is any other things which help in the release of CRH, which is a key hormone which is responsible for the initiation of the parturition cascade. So that is why whenever the placenta is secreting more and more CRH, we have to be worried if it is preterm, because this might also lead to preterm labor if this is activated prior to 37 weeks of gestation. So that is called as pathological activation of parturition cascade, which results in PPROM of preterm labor. So the CRH is secreted from the syncytial trophoblast. It helps in the remodeling of all this, and it causes the initiation of parturition cascade. Finally, the last hormones which are important are the adiponectin, the activin A, and inhibin A. So all are preferentially secreted from the syncytial trophoblast, and these all help in the formation of trophoblasts and the trophoblast invasion, and it decreases the pro-inflammatory cytokines, and it increases the anti-inflammatory cytokines, so that Th1 to Th2 shift will occur, and this helps in the maintenance of pregnancy. And also activin A and inhibin A also cause angiogenesis and decidualization, and it also helps in endometrial receptivity, which is important for implantation. So these are all important hormones which are secreted from the placenta. So finally, the take home message of today's session is, we have to remember that the placenta is the key endocrine organ during pregnancy. It secretes steroid hormones, namely estrogen, progesterone, and glucocorticoids, and it secretes or synthesizes the peptide hormones, most importantly, human chorionic gonadotropin, human placental lactogen, human placental growth hormone, CRH, leptin, and others like adiponectin, activin, and inhibin. So all these are very important. And what are the main key functions? Firstly, decidualization. Secondly, implantation. Third is the proliferation and establishment of placental mass, that is the trophoblast formation and proliferation, and trophoblast invasion, which helps in the remodeling, and it helps in the villi to be converted into the spiral arterioles to be converted into high capacitance vessels to ensure that there is continuous oxygen supply. Fourthly, it maintains the immunotolerant state or immunomodulation, which is mainly required for the establishment and maintenance of pregnancy. And also key components of CRH, which helps in the initiation of labor, and leptin, which is very important for the continuous transfer of glucose from the mother to the fetus. And also this HCG, which is very much important for the maintenance of the pregnancy, at least in the initial first trimester. So that's why without placenta, there is nothing. So without placenta, there is no life. So without placenta, the fetal or the maternal signals cannot be transmitted, and this fetal maternal interactions, the main mediator between them is the placenta. So for the fetus to live happily inside the uterus, the placenta should be fully functional. So that is why I think it is called as the tree of life. So with this, I will end the session, and please watch it and go through all those tables once again for better understanding. Thank you.